We now have a better idea when the election will be. Does that change voter behaviour? Does it focus the mind? What happens there?
Look, I think with the election being the other side of Christmas, I wouldn't expect to see sort of any particular change in the short term. I think most people that we talk to in focus groups are probably more focused on getting to Christmas, seeing family, reuniting with family and friends than worrying about an election in sort of the first quarter of next year, if that's where it lands. Yeah.
Indeed. Now, is that a vote changer with the borders closing, or is it kind of a neutral issue?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. Certainly, folk are very, you can imagine, really, really want to see stability. They really want to see predictability back in their lives. So this new Omicron version has certainly thrown a spanner in that work. So my suspicion is that there is less of an appetite for these types of strong interventions. People are sort of saying, well, we're vaccinated. Isn't that what we were vaccinated for? So I think it's hard to say because you never know quite what's going to happen with the virus itself and the science of it and those sorts of things. But certainly at the moment what we're hearing is, well, this is what we were vaccinated for, this is what we're prepared for. So there's less of an appetite for those big interventions that we saw sort of earlier this year and 2020.
And you did focus groups in Sydney and Melbourne, let's face it, that's where the election will be won and lost when you look at the number of marginal seats. What are the big themes that you're picking up? Accountability?
That's right. Yeah, the last week I've sort of had my ear chewed off about accountability, sort of talking about government being held to account on what it's promised, what it's done, what it hasn't done, and standards of behaviour. You mentioned in the intro there that the sort of the slanders and the cheap shots in Parliament. Voters are really switching off to that sort of stuff. They don't want to see it. We're in a serious time with serious issues. They want serious politics, and so this issue of accountability. It's really symptomatic of a deficit of trust. There's a real problem for this government around deficit of trust, which most Australians have a healthy scepticism anyway. But this is really landing in their own backyard, and I think we're sort of seeing this in these independent movement that we're seeing in some of these centres, like your Wentworth and your Kooyongs and so forth.
So that's the danger for Labor, is it? There's a deficit of trust around the government, but these voters aren't necessarily just translating to the other major party. They're looking at other alternatives.
Yes, certainly in these sorts of seats, they're really wanting to use, and I've had this line quoted to me in focus groups over the last week, keep the bastards honest. The Democrats slogan is back, brush that one off, whoever came up with that one, I hope you're getting royalties. That's what people are talking about in the focus groups. They want sort of a third force, if you will, in there to which whoever gets, sort of the position of government gets held to account for, what they've promised, held to account on what the big issues are and the things that they should be grappling with.
Well, that'll be sending a few shivers down a few spines in Canberra, I reckon, Simon. Thanks so much for that. We'll check in soon.
No worries. Thanks, Laura.